Susan Barrett, thanks a million for coming into the Actors Room.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
We're delighted to have you. I'd love it just if you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Tala in Dublin, and I was in school in Rathfarnham and then the high school in Rathgar then. And then I trained in acting and performing arts in the Liberties in Bullally Theatre Training College. That was a four-year course in town. And then after that, I then auditioned for drama schools in London. And then I did a year postgrad course over there and was there for just under 2 years, and then came back to Dublin and continued on doing shows and things like that.
So you were over in London. Is there a massive difference between auditioning in, say, Ireland and then in the UK? Like, what have you noticed?
Well, I suppose when I was in London, the auditions I was going for were, it's all stuff that would be on Casting Call Pro website, which is a website that's free to set up a profile, or you can pay to get the kind of pro side of it. But it was all profit share shows and student films and things like that. So they were, I suppose, smaller gigs, so not like, TV gigs or commercials and things like that. So I suppose it was different in a sense that it was very fast.
Okay.
Everything was much faster because they have so many people that are applying for jobs, but then there's also a lot more jobs going. The difference for me is, as an Irish actor being over there, what I noticed very quickly was I wasn't being seen as an actor there. I was being seen as an Irish actor.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as the people rarely look at your CV, it's more your headshot or a show reel if you have one. Yeah. So they would kind of not see that, your nationality or something like that. So as soon as I'd open my mouth, you'd kind of get this feeling of, oh no. I was like, well, I can do an English accent. Give me a chance. But yeah, it was different in that way, that you kind of feel you've already kind of got a little X over your head.
And you've been acting how long now? You've been doing it for?
Nearly 12 years.
Right, okay. And how are you finding the process of auditioning? And I suppose there's always a little bit of rejection. Anything to do with creative, I think you're always getting rejected, and it's part of package of being creative. Absolutely. And putting yourself out there. How do you manage that, or how did you find the process? Or
well, I suppose at the start, because when I was in college here in Dublin, it was a very good course actually, because it was very practical. So we did about 2 plays a year, and then everybody took part in the musical at the end of the year. And then in third year we did 4 plays, and then musical at the end of the year. So you were kind of weaned into the auditioning experience, I suppose. So you prepared your monologue or whatever, and then you were kind of stood there doing it with these people writing notes in front of you. But the thing about doing that in college is that you're guaranteed a part. Everybody gets a part because you're in college. But once I finished college and I started kind of getting auditions for commercials or whatever, I would be able to count on my hand how many auditions I'd had. Be like, oh, well, I auditioned for these people in this place. And well, now, all these years on, I've no idea how many auditions I've gone for. There's so many. So it's kind of, I suppose there is a huge amount of rejection. I'd say, out of all the jobs that you kind of go for, it's majority is going to be rejection, like 80%, whatever. But it is rough at the start. But I think I was lucky that I went into the business or went into training with a kind of realistic idea that I knew I wasn't going to, be an overnight success and end up in Hollywood and this type of thing. Yeah. I knew that there were going to be a lot of rejection and no callbacks and things like that. If you happen to get one, it's a nice surprise. Yeah. And something then to work towards. But I suppose the way I kind of deal with it now is quite different. That once I go into an audition, I've prepared everything I can. I go in, I do my best. If they ask me to do it differently, I do it differently, and always stay positive and happy and smiley and everything. And as soon as you leave, that's that door closed. That's that done.
You don't think about it again. Yeah. That's it.
If they call you, great. If they don't, there's another one coming up in the next week or so.
I think that's I think that's really the best way to do it, I think, because you can get really bogged down, I think.
Yeah.
You know, wondering if the phone's going to ring. So you just assume that you've done it and that's the end. And if you hear something, then...
Exactly, yeah. You've done your best. And like you know, you still kind of criticise yourself saying, I know I could have done that better. And they can't ask you in again to redo it. So it's like, they could ask me in again. It's like the casting directors will always be calling you in again. If they called you in the first place, more often than not, you'll be called in again for something different that you might suit better, or you could then like nail it, and then they think, oh, okay, so she had a bit of a bad audition that time, but that one she actually, you know, did a really good job on.
Yeah, and plus the fact is you're sitting in front of the casting director, so you've gotten that far, so they know that you exist, which is more than what they did before you walked into the room.
Exactly, yeah.
Are you? Would you consider yourself a jobbing actress, or, you know, what do you do on the side? I suppose, because I suppose a lot of people who are actors, they have that work balance where, you know, they have to be able to feed themselves and pay their bills. So are you doing other things outside of acting? Or?
I have done. When I was in college, I had like a part-time job in a shop that like I had that for like a couple of years. And I was living at home at the time, so you could save a bit more. Yeah. But as soon as I went to London, that all just went away very fast, you know. Yeah. Everything that I'd saved up just kind of went in the blink of an eye. And then I couldn't get a job over there because the course took up so much time. A lot of people who had jobs had to just quit them because it was a very kind of intense course. But yeah, I've done different jobs just to kind of make a living and pay the rent and that. Yeah. Like in retail and then a museum and stuff like that. Yeah. I worked in a cinema there just up until last June, and I was there for just over a year, and it was a great place to work. It was actually really fun working in a cinema. Yeah. But I had to turn down so many auditions, and I had to kind of pull out of potential theatre gigs and stuff. So I just kind of bit the bullet and said, I can't really say no anymore. It's like, what is it that I am, and what is it that I do? So like many actors, I just had to kind of put that to bed for the moment and then struggle. Yeah, well, you know, it's a question that I have been asking lots of actors, and some will kind of say, well, you know, I'm kind of lucky because I can do web design, and so it kind of works out nice. But then others, a bit like yourself, you're like, you take jobs as they come and when you need them, and then in between you kind of work it out. I suppose it's nice for people to hear that everybody is in the same boat, and everybody has the same obstacles in front of them as well. Yeah. When you're trying to have a creative career. I suppose, like, when it comes to acting itself, do you have a way of prepping for that? Do you see yourself as a method actor, or? I suppose I don't think I have a particular practitioner that I follow. We were really lucky in the Liberties that we kind of studied the different practitioners, like, you know, Peter Brook or Meisner or Stanislavski and that, and we would do exercises or workshops using the tools that they provide. And a lot of that stuff didn't really work for me, and it worked wonders for other people, and they use that in everything that they do. Whereas I kind of took what I found useful and then just let lie what I didn't. Right. So it's kind of like a cocktail of different things. And also, I suppose it depends on the project itself. Whether it's kind of theatre, you might have more time to develop character and things. Whereas, you know, if it's film or TV or something, it's very kind of quick. Yeah. Everything's very, very fast. So the characters, you might not have as much time to put into creating a very fully well-rounded character, unless you're in like a long-running thing. But I suppose when I have time, I like to just imagine the character in their everyday life. Right. So it's kind of like when you look at a scene that the character is in, that thing of like, where did they just come from and where are they going to afterwards? And, you know, like, what do they have for breakfast, and what type of house do they live in, or do they have a car, or, you know, what childhood do they have, their siblings, parents, whatever, that type of thing. As why are they how they are, and how do they end up in that situation? Exactly. Yeah. That's I think a lot of people kind of possibly maybe overlook that initially when they're starting out, and so that's
a really nice piece of information, I think, for people who are thinking about a career in acting or how to go about attacking a new scene. Do you have any inspirations, or who would you look to for inspiration growing up?
That's a difficult one, because nobody in my family is in the acting business, or I suppose on the artistic side, yeah, like my mum's side of the family were all seamstresses and tailors and stuff, but very kind of working class and things like that, living in tenements and the likes. So I suppose there is a bit of creative streak kind of in the family, but I wouldn't have had somebody in the family or that close to me that I could kind of ask about the career or the business. And you know, it's the whole type of thing of when you're saying, I want to be an actor, you know, I want to perform on the stage, and you know, it's like, it's just a phase, you know, like go into business, be a teacher, be a nurse. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, you need something to fall back on. You know, I just didn't really. I suppose that kind of egged me on more of like, I don't want to have to do something to fall back on. Yeah, you want to do it. Yeah, that's it. I think growing up watching TV shows, like we didn't really watch Irish channels that much. Like, you know, you would have caught a bit of Glenroe and all that type of thing. You know, it's like, that'd be great to be in Glenroe. But a lot of kind of like British comedies and stuff, like Only Fools and Horses and Fawlty Towers and that. And I suppose I clocked at an early age of a lot of those comedy actors are actually some of the best actors of their generations, because they could have been in like a different program, or there could have been an episode that had a really dark story or a very serious subject matter, and you know, just kind of bring it to your knees of how fantastic the performance was. And I suppose just watching that, I was just mesmerised by how versatile those people could be. And I was like, I could do that. Like, give me a chance, and I can read this, I can read that, or whatever. And I did a couple of short courses when I was about 15, 16. One in the NPAS, which used to be in the factory, out towards
I used
Ringsend.
to do it there as well.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and I used to teach a little bit when I was out there. Yeah, years ago. Yeah, so I know the factory well. Yeah. And you were out there doing acting, was it? Yeah. It
was kind of all-round performance course. So, you know, you did a bit of singing, you did a bit of dancing and tap. And the dance teachers were fantastic.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, and then you had like some kind of scene studies classes, which were great fun because you got to do a bit of improv, which I always was terrified of. But it's like, improv, just say yes. Whatever the situation is, just say yes. Even if it's ridiculous, just say yes. And that was really fun. I thought that was a really good kind of positive, encouraging atmosphere.
So improvisation is a big thing, and then obviously like looking to the UK and looking at comedy, I suppose comedy would be a big inspiration for you as well. Do you have I suppose any famous actors that like you can kind of say, you know, I wouldn't mind being like this person or like this person and this person mixed together? do you see anybody out there that you think,
absolutely,
yeah,
from years ago, I was a massive fan of Cate Blanchett.
Right.
I just thought she was absolutely brilliant in everything that I saw. And then, you know, when you see her playing Veronica Guerin, you're like, oh my God, she was in Ireland and she was playing an Irish person and her accent is fantastic. And I was just like, oh my God, she's just such a chameleon and, you know, fantastic. She got the Oscar. But her career is just unbelievable. Yeah. When you think of, she's Australian. Yeah. As far as I remember, and then she played Elizabeth the First. Yeah, that's right. And I thought that was an amazing performance, absolutely amazing. But also, I think kind of growing up in Ireland, you grow up with English TV, so you have people like Judy Walters. Oh yeah, you know, you gotta love Judy Walters, and Judi Dench, of course, an actress who absolutely despises looking at herself doing things. And I think a lot of actors can relate to that.
Yeah, they don't like to have a gander at themselves. Yeah, and I think now is a great time, I think, for Irish actors and creatives in general. I mean, Saoirse Ronan's doing really well. Yeah. And then you have Lenny doing really well with his film Room, which is fantastic, amazing, and all from such a really small island. So do you feel the energy changing, or?
Yeah, I think Ireland has a reputation of being very wealthy in arts and talent in the arts, whether it's, you know, you're a painter, a writer, sculptor, poet, whatever. It's what we're kind of known for, you know, like good storytellers, great singers, all that type of stuff. And I think the way that I love classical Irish theatre.
Yeah.
You know, like the O'Casey and Be Keen and all that type of stuff. I love going to the theatre to see those plays. I think they're fantastic. And those plays are famous all over the world. And this is before you had internet and, you know, much telly and things like that. So the word was already out there that the writing is so strong and the stories are so good.
Yeah.
And the performances to back that up, because essentially actors are vessels for the writers and then the directors to put their take on what the writer has put down on the page. Yeah. And then, you know, the actors can have the chance to interpret that in their own way as well. So it's a whole collaboration of things. And the way the industry is really developed, we had a really strong kind of decade in the 90s for film. Like you had, I think, I Went Down, which is really, I think it's an underrated film and it's not on much as well. But written by Conor McPherson. That's a fantastic film. It's one of my brother's favourite films ever. And, you know, you have McDonagh coming out there as well. And now I think that, not that Hollywood's turning to Ireland to kind of look for the pool of people, but it's actually the pool of people here are looking outside of Ireland to kind of bring what they have out there. So like, you know, Lenny with what Richard did, and I think went to Cannes and that, and Jack Rayner ended up just catapulting.
In Transformers, it was just insane.
It's amazing what something like that can do for a career, whether it's you're an actor or a director. You know, once you just get that one chance, it can just change everything, and not just change your own life or career, but that of everybody else who was involved.
Absolutely. And perseverance, I think, has a lot to do with that. And like you said, I think maybe people are looking outside of the little island that is Ireland, and they're starting to branch out.
Star Wars, you know.
Oh, I mean, I know
they want a piece of this.
I know. Everybody comes here. That's the one thing I actually really love about Ireland is the landscape. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing about Ireland is I think we have Hollywood reach without having to move from our little island.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so yeah, please God, it'll keep going.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on the internet and social media. So I know not that everything's changing, but I know it's a big question for actors now and creatives. Like, do you have a social media presence? Do you find that's important?
I suppose the great thing for social media like Facebook and Twitter is that the casting directors are on Facebook and Twitter as well. So in a way, there's more accessibility. But also, you know, if you are serious about the industry and you want to be taken seriously as an actor in that, and you know, if you're on Facebook, don't be bad mouthing. You know, if you had a rotten audition, you don't need to voice it. You know, and even if you got a really big gig, you don't need to voice it. I keep everything very, very close to my chest. You know, whether I have like 10 auditions and I get none of them,
right?
You know, or I do 10 and I get one of them, I don't voice anything.
Voice it,
But it's a lot of people are setting up like their own actors' pages and that. But I think the social media is just getting a bit too saturated with that, so people don't pay much heed to them. So I think if you're going to have a presence, just keep it as the one and just be kind of smart about what you're putting out there.
So promote work as opposed to what you're doing every single day. Yeah.
Like, you know, like if I go somewhere nice for a drink, I might, you know, check in. It's like, hey, they have Wi-Fi, why not? Yeah. It's a nice bar. Other people should know about this bar. Yeah. But, you know, I wouldn't be taking drunk snaps and all that type of thing.
Okay, so to be more self-aware.
I suppose,
Yeah, and kind of push through. Would you have any tips and advice for people kind of starting out? What would you say to, say, a new actor? Perhaps maybe either they've been away from it for a while and they want to come back, or perhaps maybe they're thinking perhaps maybe they'd like a career in acting. What would you say to them?
I would say if it's somebody coming back to acting, if they'd had previous training or experience and stuff, I think short courses can be a great way just to kind of dip into it again, and then to get the confidence also to just get out there. But also even like a lot of people don't take the training route. They just kind of see the audition notices on the internet or Facebook or whatever, and they go for them. And, they could be very lucky, and that's great. I suppose because I trained, I would always recommend getting some sort of training behind you, so you kind of know more about what you're getting into in a way. Like some people only want to do TV or only want to do camera work, but they might not have ever done anything in front of a camera, and camera work is so different to theatre. So I think you can do like day workshops. Like what's great now is that there are loads of different places that do these type of things, and it could just be a day, or it could be 2 days, or a week course, or something like that, just to get advice and to see yourself.
Do you think? Like, I know you mentioned camera work, but do you think everybody should have a grounding in theatre as well as I suppose camera work, and should they know different techniques of acting as well, or can you specifically say it's only this area?
I think it does work for some people if they've only ever known doing TV and they've never touched a stage, and they might never do that, and they've got continuous work and things like that, and if it's worked for them, then that's fine. They know how to do that. For me personally, when I was thinking about like, where will I train or what will I do, I was terrified of theatre. I was, oh God, I don't think I want to do that, because it's live in front of an audience of, it could be a few hundred people. If you mess up, it's in front of that many people, and it's just it was very daunting. I was just thinking, I just want to do TV. just do TV. But even then I hadn't done any, so I wouldn't have known how to act in front of a camera at all. So I think the course that I did, even though I was absolutely kind of bricking it and having kittens and everything, my eyes were really opened in the training that I did, and the curriculum was very smart, because you went from where theatre began. So you went from your ancient Greek plays, your tragedies, and then you went through to the ancient Roman plays and the comedies, and then you went to the medieval miracle morality plays, and then the next year you then went to Elizabethan, Shakespearean, Jacobean, Caroline, all these things, neoclassical, Restoration. So you kind of went through the different eras of theatre. There were periods before women appeared on the stage, so you saw how that changed how plays were written, because they were then written with a woman in mind instead of a young boy or a man. So I learnt so much, and I then got so much respect for
the craft itself.
The craft, so like the birth of where it came from and where these stories originated, and pretty much like there's so few new stories these days that they all kind of revolve around the origins. And I don't think I would change that for anything. Theatre is definitely something that I think is worth even just having a little bit of experience in.
No, that's very inspirational. I think that's probably a lovely bit of advice for anybody in acting, is to probably go back and have a look at the history, where it's come from, because if you want to be an actor, you need to know where it came from. I know you got cast in The Hippo Tuesday, but that was your first feature, was it?
Yes.
How was that? What was that experience like?
Well, I suppose it was quite different, because I know the director quite well. I was cast in the role of Carla Boyce, who is a struggling actress willing to do anything to get ahead in her career, including putting up with her awful director, Roger Mile, who's an arrogant twat.
So did you find that difficult to draw from?
It's just at the tip of my fingers, But I only had about 4 scenes in the whole script. But I was trying to get my head around this character that I'm like in some ways, but she's a very kind of, I suppose, kind of girly girl. Like, she'd wear nice dresses and things like that. And I was always more of a tomboy, so I always find that kind of difficult to get into, but I suppose a challenge. Which is good. But because I am partner of the director, I said, you know, if you need a hand on set, like, you know, loading the car or whatever, just let me know and I'll help. And then the next day, I was there every single day on set, loading and unloading the car with all the equipment and everything props and what have you. Yeah. And then I was pretty much AD for the majority, and then continuity, clapper, loader, line producer.
Wow, so you did
locations, casting. You know, it was I had about 80% of my job was behind the camera, and the 20% was in front of it. Yeah. So it was. I suppose,
so was there an audition, or how did that happen? Or
no audition.
No.
What I will say is that nobody actually auditioned for these roles. Kevin isn't a huge fan of the sit down behind a desk and take notes and watch somebody do a scene. It's more send me a show reel, have a look at their CV and their headshot, and if I like what I see there, I'll arrange to meet up with them in person and see what vibe would they suit type of thing.
Okay, so more of a like general conversation.
Yeah, it's more kind of personal, kind of getting to know the person type of thing, and then from there getting a feeling of this person would actually be good, or this person might not suit this character, but I think they might do this one.
Have you any plans to go back to London?
In the immediate future, no. I would say that for anybody who's going to go to the UK, even if you're going for a course, like going into a course is great because you're kind of going into a community that's set up. So it's kind of like a little safe nest that you're going to be in every day, and you make friends, and that's a nice kind of security. Yeah. Though it costs a fair bit for the courses and things like that. A lot of people I know have just gone over and tried to secure an agent or auditions and things like that, and some of them are actually doing quite well. They have an agent, or they go for commercial castings, or they've travelled Europe with plays and things, but they have to have another job there
as well.
Yeah,
right.
Because it is quite expensive, and annually to live in like a not pricey place is minimum like $7,000 a year sterling. And then council tax is something that people overlook. If you're a student, you don't have to pay council tax, but if you're not, then you have to start paying that. Depending on where you live in London or in the UK, it differs. So it's a lot of money that I'd need behind me to take that plunge again.
Yeah. I was chatting to Glenn Keogh. He actually was our first actors room. He came in and had a chat with us, and he is an Irish actor. You probably heard of him, and he's been off in the States. He just stuff he's done so many different things, done little parts on Law and Order and
Brilliant.
Criminal Minds and stuff. And he was saying how he managed to get over there, get working, and like that, having a bit of money behind you. Have you any ambitions to maybe even think about the States at some point?
It was probably one of the first things I thought about before I even thought about training. This is kind of like when I had my heads a bit in the cloud, and I was thinking, an ideal world, I'd pop across the pond and hop to LA or New York and like try and do maybe a couple of workshops and get signed to an agent and this, that and the other, and then boom, I'll be in Hollywood. But it's definitely on the cards, and a lot of people who are there say, they're crying out for Irish talent, and it's like, well, there's loads there already. There's a huge amount of whether you've heard of them or not, there's a huge wealth of them there. But like I'm kind of the stereotypical image of a Irish Colleen, red hair, pale skin, But if you ever look at Irish films, when they cast the women, there's rarely ever a ginger in there, because the actual typical Irish person is pale skinned, maybe blue or green eyes, and dark hair.
And dark hair, that's
true. So it's the kind of everybody outside of Ireland is like, red hair, you must get all the Irish gigs. Like,
no, I don't.
No. If anything, you're kind of the repellent. But definitely, the States is definitely something. Like I've never been there, even for a holiday. But I'd love to see what the scene is like over there. I'd say it's completely different to even like London and that. So huge.
No, I'd say like Glenn was I mean, it was great. Actually, you should listen to the podcast. It was very good. No, but he was brilliant. He was saying, even down to like getting green cards and what to do.
Yeah.
He applied for the lottery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he got it along
That's
with
amazing.
some of his friends. He seems to think it's not that difficult. So I'm like, apply now.
That's fantastic.
So I know, it's brilliant. So there's lots of Irish over in the States, and he says there's a little place there for everybody. So yeah, I could set you up with him. Is there anything else that you, before we finish, that you would love to promote? Are you doing anything at the moment?
Yes. You mentioned the Hit Producer, which was filmed in 2012 and had its premiere in Cork 2014, and then cinema release just last year in October in Movies at Dundrum. It's having a one-off release this week, so it might be after the podcast comes out, which is it's going to be on in Omniplex in Wexford, Limerick and in Cork, just this Wednesday the 13th at 8:30. And Kevin is also doing a talk on excuse me, filmmaking and like crowdfunding and budgeting and things like that in Limerick University on the Wednesday at 1:30. After then we have DVD distribution secured for certain regions, so the DVDs will be coming out in a few months or so.
Brilliant.
Which is absolutely fantastic. Like when you have somebody who takes on that role of they deal with that now. It's, oh my God, the weight is just, oh my Lord. Still loads to do. But there's a possible release going to be in one of the 2 cinema chains in Mexico, as well, as the director Kevin is Mexican. So he's been back and forth the last couple of years trying to organise that. So we could be in Mexico in a few months as well for a release of that.
Happy days. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, that would be very nice. And myself, I am doing a play in the Smock Alley Seen and Heard Festival. It's similar to Collaborations, which isn't being continued, where loads of different plays were submitted. And the ones that were chosen, they get to showcase 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes of their play over 3 weeks in Smock Alley. So this one is, I worked with the director last year on a show called Tingo, which was also in Smock Alley. And this is called Ashleen's 7. And it's a nice comedy piece. I play Ashleen, and there's 2 other characters, my character's boyfriend and her sister. And Ashleen works in a bank. And she is a bit bored. And she's sick of having to struggle to earn a living and stuff. So she plans a bank heist to try and rob the bank that she works in, to try and, end up in Barbados and something like that. So yeah, it's a nice kind of light comedy piece. So the first 20 minutes of that will be in Smock Alley and Seen and Heard.
So people can catch you there.
Yes.
That's brilliant. Susan Barrett, thank you so much for coming in and having a chat with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
No problem.